of the most frustrating things as a founder is when you're putting in long days and not getting anywhere in your business. In this video, I will talk to you about how to fix that and how to identify the bottleneck in your business that is really holding you back. In a business, oftentimes spotting the bottleneck that is truly holding a business back requires a lot of skill and a very unique skill set at that to be able to identify what that really is, because there's so many moving parts in a business. There is how you are managing your time, for instance, the things that you are focusing on, how you are structuring your day. There is the skill level of each of the positions inside the business, the pay structures of the people inside the business. This stuff is very complex, to say the least, right? But if you are trained in how to spot this stuff and you are skilled at how to spot this stuff, it becomes much simpler. What am I looking at? If I'm looking inside a business and I'm trying to identify what the thing is that's holding that business back, truly holding the business back, first we have to look at where are they spending their time, right? Where is the founder, for example, or the people in leadership, how are they spending their time? And why are they spending their time focusing on those things? Is the marketing guy, for example, focused on ads? Or is the marketing guy focused on answering emails? And why is that? So oftentimes these issues stem from the top, and they stem from not understanding how to manage a business effectively and how to be efficient at what it is that you're doing. And that's often, to some extent, a skill issue or a lack of caring issue. The founder of the business has to care about solving these problems, but they also have to have the skill and the knowledge to know how to solve these problems when they come up. The founder has to be responsible for identifying bottlenecks and solving them in some way if they are the key decision maker, right? And if they are, for instance, not able to do that, oftentimes what you'll see is the way the founder may go about solving the problems may not work, right? You may see, for instance, where a business is struggling financially, and the founder is asking the employees to do things that do not make sense or are not very efficient, to be quite honest. And what may happen is the issue may get even worse. So let's say, for instance, we'll just use a real life example here of a real issue inside a business. In this case, we'll call this guy John. John has been struggling in his business. He's working 60-hour weeks. Every single week he's working 60-hour weeks. He is the founder, and John is great at making videos. He is great behind the camera. He is great at getting attention online. Phenomenal at that. However, the attention that he's getting is not actually converting into sales. So John is spending his whole day focusing on getting attention, but John is not focused on innovating. He's not focused on releasing new products or improving the design of his product. He sells a very niche product. And when John was first starting, his product blew up online, was very successful. He was doing well organically without even having to run ads. But over time, what happened is John stopped innovating. He stopped focusing on the design. He stopped releasing new stuff, right? And I'm taking this from a real world example, but I'm changing the names and some of the details, of course. So John stopped innovating, and that was no longer a primary focus for John, the founder. So he kind of passed that off to somebody else, and John is spending most of his day either packing orders and doing things of that nature, or working on high reach content. The problem is, in this case, John's high reach content by itself, while it may be very valuable for getting attention online, it's not converting. In John's case, the thing that is truly driving the revenue for the business primarily is the ads. And John is not spending most of his time focused on the ads, working with maybe his marketing guy or girl, whoever it is. And John is spending most of his time focusing on something that is not moving the needle, right? And you can see this. He stopped posting for a while. His revenue didn't really change. Then he started posting again. His revenue did not really change. The sessions on his site are not really going up. And so there's no indicator that what John is doing organically with his marketing strategy is working. But in this example, he would have to change his marketing strategy. You'd have to look at what he's doing organically, look at where his time is going, and learn to delegate. Learn to only focus on the high leverage things and learn how to identify what things are actually high leverage. So this is a very complex and very nuanced business issue, and every business is different. So I can't guarantee you any kind of earnings. This isn't financial advice or anything like that. So this is just strictly based on my opinion and what I've seen from 5-6-ish years in e-commerce. So in John's case, right, he is spending most of his time focused on organic content, which could be very valuable and very valuable at overall indirectly improving performance, but it's not driving directly revenue for the business, if that makes sense. So what John would need to do in this case is he would need to likely continue posting organically, but adjust his strategy, right? Maybe start to include some mentions of the product, for instance. Maybe start to talk about the product some in some of these posts in just a way that's not overly salesy. And this may cause for some improvement over time. For example, another thing he could implement is a mini chat bot on his social media pages where he says comment whatever and I'll send you the link. And he doesn't have to do this on every post, but he could start doing it here and there occasionally to adjust his strategy a little bit to try to get more people to check out his product. He could also do this on his story. So in John's case, what he would need to do is he would need to come up with a strategy and adjust his social media marketing strategy to make it more efficient. Because if he's entirely reliant on ads for sales, this is the first problem. You cannot grow a business and be fully reliant on ads without having repeat customers and expect to be successful in the long term. So in John's case, John was really good at making content, he's really good at making ads, and he was profitable for a while when it comes to his cost per purchase maybe. But over time, what happens? As he's spending more and more money on ads and he's reaching more and more new customers, it becomes increasingly harder for the platform to find those new customers and to reach those new customers. So what happens? His cost per purchase will start to gradually go up. Now, in John's case, for instance, this is a very nuanced issue. He may have some employees, for example, and the way he is paying these employees based on pay structure may not make sense for his specific business. So he may have somebody, for instance, who maybe they're in a role where they don't have a lot of skill in this specific role, but they're being paid a pretty good salary, maybe almost the same as somebody who's like managing the whole business, basically. So in this case, John has an employee, and this is a common thing you see in small businesses. So nothing against John. He's trying his best, and he's trying to do what he thinks may be best. But he's got his marketing guy, for example, managing 5 different other roles inside the business on top of marketing. And John is not using his time properly because he is focusing on assembling whatever orders it is himself, packing whatever orders himself, versus outsourcing that and delegating that so he can focus on the high leverage tasks. So this is a very complex issue because what he's doing is not efficient. The way he's paying people is not correct based on their positions, and over time this issue will compound and it will get worse and worse. So generally speaking, how can you avoid this issue as a whole? Because this can be a very frustrating and very stressful issue. The number one thing is you have to know how to prioritize your time and what even deserves your attention in the first place. And you have to also be thinking as a business owner or operator, when you are assigning people things to do, telling them, hey, go work on this thing for me, or hey, I've got something for you to work on, you have to also be thinking about, is that the most efficient use of this person's time as well? For example, if you have a marketing guy and you're assigning them spreadsheet work that you forgot to do, that is basic admin work, that may take them hours, what's going to happen over time is that person may get burnt out, they may get frustrated, they may get demoralized, and it's going to take their attention away from the high leverage thing that they should be focused on, probably with the founder in a small business. So in this case, you have your marketing guy who is spending most of their time doing things like coordinating with suppliers, looking at spreadsheets, or whatever the case is. But that time cannot be spent on the things that actually grow the business. And the same is happening with the founder. So when the marketing guy is supposed to be doing marketing, he needs content, but he doesn't have the content that he needs, right? He's asking for the content. Hey, how do we get this content? How can we go about getting this content? And he's having trouble with communication because John, the founder, is in the business and he's trying to do everything himself. So John is so focused on packing those orders that he can't get the marketing guy what he needs, right? And in this example, this is a time management issue and a business management issue, which if not fixed could lead to the business having some serious problems. Now, how would this look, for example, on a P&L or balance sheet when you actually are looking at the numbers? There could be a number of things when you are seeing a business where the bottleneck really may just be how they're managing their time and how they're operating, if they're not operating efficiently. So what you may see, for example, is the operating expenses are very high, right? If the business is being ran inefficiently, you may see very high operating expenses. And what you also may see as a result, if the founder is not prioritizing things like new product drops, improving the product as a whole, working on things like ads, work with the marketing team or whatever the case is, content strategy, right? And improving that and really identifying what's working and not working. What you may see is marketing efficiency may also start to go up at some point. So maybe, for example, marketing efficiency is really good. Maybe you're at a 5-to-1 MER at scale. For example, 4-to-1 MER, 5-to-1 MER at scale, which is pretty solid overall for a small business. So for a small business where you don't have as high of a lifetime value, 4-to-1, 5-to-1 MER may be pretty solid overall for a smaller business with a decent, reasonable marketing budget. What that means is for every dollar you're putting in, basically, you're getting $4, $5 back. Now, over time, that may become a 3-to-1, right? And that still could be pretty good in some cases. But if you have a business that is operating inefficiently, if you have employees who maybe they're not providing revenue directly, who are paid salaries, or the pay structures are just not set up correctly, that can also lead to burnout from the marketing guy. For instance, in this case, that can lead to burnout for the marketing guy, but also over time, the operating expenses may be a large portion of the sales because not all those operating expenses are producing revenue. So in this case, maybe for example, the marketing person is doing the job of 2 or 3 different people. And they can't really focus all their energy on marketing because they're not getting the content they need, because that's not the focus of the founder. They don't have set budgets. And this is a very complex issue because of the lack of systems, because of the lack of structure, because of the lack of clear roles inside the business. And when you have somebody who is a salary position, you have to have some kind of structure on how you are operating and what things they are responsible for. Generally speaking, your marketing guy should not also be worrying about upset customers. Generally speaking, they shouldn't be worrying about inventory issues, generally speaking. And it's okay for a small business to have people wearing different hats in the business at first. But over time, you should start to delegate, especially the lower leverage tasks, off to people in a way that frees up time if you want to grow. You have to look at the leverage of the things that you are focusing on and how that is actually affecting the business. You could have the smartest marketing person in the world, but if you don't get them the content that they need and you don't get them the stuff that they're asking for, and you don't come up with a plan on how they can get that with them, they may not be able to produce, to be able to do their job, if that makes sense. Or you may just have them in the wrong role. You may have your marketing guy, for example, doing media buying when they are a creative strategist, right, by nature. They're good at creative strategy and they're good in a management role, but you have them editing videos and doing media buying because you as the founder aren't paying attention to what is going on inside the business and you aren't aware of that, right? And you don't understand how to put them into the right position so that they can be as effective as possible. Or they may just not be aware of what they need to do because you've never explained it and you've never laid out clear processes on what they need to do. With all that being said, these issues can be very complex, they can be very nuanced, every business is different, but generally speaking, as the founder, what you have to be responsible for to run a successful business is making sure your business is operating efficiently and not passing off responsibility of founder duties to other people inside the business. You should not be going to your employees, for example, to ask them what to do in financial situations. Your job as the founder is to figure that out and to make good decisions that are best for the whole business, not just the easiest for you at the time being as well. So if you don't know the answer to something, whose job is it at the end of the day to find that answer, right? That is the founder's job to figure out the answer to what they need to do before just making a decision that could put other people's jobs at risk as well. And nobody wants to be in a position as an employee where they can see that a company is on the verge of bankruptcy because of poor financial decisions, especially that they can't control. And so you have to, as the founder, invest in, even if you have to, in my opinion, you have to invest in some kind of training if you aren't knowledgeable in some area, or educate yourself in some way on how to make decisions inside a business, on how to lead, on how to manage if you're going to be managing a business. You have other people who you are looking out for in a business. And so with that being said, you have to be focused on them and have to be focused on providing a career for them, not just doing what is easiest for you right now and saying, here you go, handing them something and saying, you figured this out. It's your job as the founder to be responsible for figuring things out. It's your job as the founder to be concerned with how the business is performing and to be focused on making adjustments based on that and to understand all the things that go into a successful business. So with that being said, when it comes to leverage, right, where a lot of people mess up in business is they're focusing most of their time on low leverage tasks or even medium leverage stuff. How do you correct that? What I would say the simplest approach would be is you cut out all the low leverage stuff for your skilled employees who are in skilled positions. If you have a marketing guy, for example, who you're paying a salary to, look at how much of the things you're asking them to do are high leverage, medium leverage, low leverage. So maybe your marketing guy, for instance, is also coordinating with suppliers, going back and forth with suppliers and placing orders. So what you could do in this case is also look at the spreadsheet work you're handing them and say, I'm not going to do this anymore because that's not supposed to be their job. And I don't want to burn that employee out and have them mentally checked out in my company and not being productive because they don't know what to do or they're being asked to do things that they are not good at, that are not producing value and that are not efficient uses of their time. You have to remember that A players in a business, people who are high achievers inside a business, will get burnt out and they will get frustrated if you ask them to do things that are not efficient, right? It's just the nature of it. They don't like to waste time. They don't like to waste energy. They want to focus on the highest leverage actions. So don't ask your marketing guy, for example, to go do admin work on a spreadsheet. If you're trying to grow a business, you go find somebody to do that. If you, say for example, forgot to do something on a spreadsheet, right? You don't want to make these mistakes and burn somebody out. So with that being said, if you guys found this helpful, drop a like and comment below what you want to see next, but that is going to be it for this video.